Hi everyone, so glad to be here. I made it on time today. Yay. So today I'm going to talk about the how to know if you have an armored heart and what to look for in your energy and in what you're doing and how things are. Hi Marilyn, hey Ken. And so I'm going to encourage you as we go through this today to ask questions. If you have questions about anything I'm talking about, feel free to jump in and ask whatever questions you have, and we'll see how it goes there. Hey Ken, hey Mary, hey Matt, hey Ken rather. So as you guys are going through and you're doing this, you know, I'm just gonna talk about it, okay? So some of the stuff you may recognize, some of it you may not. Let's see how it goes, okay? All right, so let's first talk about what are the reasons why people armor their hearts, okay? And typically what happens is that when you have an armored heart, there is a moment in your childhood, usually, although if you were in an abusive relationship, it may have happened during that relationship, where you decide that it is not worth it to allow your heart to be reached. And you literally just shut it down. You're like, screw it, done, right? So some of us do it at a very young age, and we don't recognize that choice point. For me, I remember vividly the moment that I did it. I was 13 years old. I was looking at going to see my dad, and my dad was just angry about everything all the time, and I was just tired of being hurt. I was tired of it. And I was like, screw this, I'm not gonna be hurt anymore, I'm just gonna shut it down. And I just did, and I just shut it down. There was just a choice point where I was like, nope, boom, bang, the doors are closed. And so when you have that moment, whether you remember doing it or not, a lot of people don't remember doing it. I just happen to be one of those people that I'm like, conscious choice, wham, bam, you know. But whether you remember doing it or not, there's this moment where you just shut it down. And the shutdown moment is usually fueled by pain or fear or anger. Mine was anger. A lot of people's is anger, okay? Regardless of that, there is a place where, and Mary says more times than one and more people than one. Yeah, that can happen too. You know, sometimes it's your first love and you get hurt, you're like, done! Because that can be very traumatizing the first time you get hurt. So the point is that when you shut it down, what you do is you start to armor it up, okay? And you armor it up. For the most part, people armor it up with anger. And there's this moment of just like, I'm tired, I'm pissed off, I'm this being hurt sucks and I'm never doing it again, right? And you just, and you get angrier and angrier, right? And so the anger becomes the armor. Now, what happens is that every time you have an emotion, after that moment that you have armored it up, you don't actually feel the emotion. The emotion happens, but you then begin to, hey Ken, you then begin to process your emotions with your mind, okay? So as you start to process your emotions with your mind, what happens is that you will try and think to yourself how to feel better. You're like, well, I'm not happy. Let me figure out why I'm not happy. I'm sad, so I gotta figure out how not to be sad anymore. And all your emotions start getting processed with your head instead of with your heart. So you start to think about how to feel better rather than feeling the emotion and allowing it to move through you. Now, ironically, we do this as a way to try and prevent ourselves, hey Valerie, from trying to, we try and prevent ourselves from feeling the emotions, right? And the problem with that is that when you don't feel the emotions, they sit there a really long time, because no emotion ever goes away until you actually feel it. And ironically, most emotions only last a few seconds to maybe a couple of minutes. The vast majority of emotions only last that long. And so we're just stuffing them, right? We're just stuffing them and stuffing them and stuffing them. They never make it out. They never get processed, because they're all inside that little armored heart of ours. And we just shove them down, and they become this big padding around our heart. And so the longer we go with that armored heart, the more solid the armor becomes, because the more angry we get that we are not feeling seen in our emotions. And we really point at other people and say, oh, you're not seeing me. You don't see how hurt I am by that. And the fact is, it's not them that's not seeing how hurt you are by that. It's you who's not seeing how hurt you are by that, because you're the one not admitting you have these emotions in your heart. You're trying to process them away with your brain. And so you're internally pissed off, but projecting it outside, right? And so you feel unseen, and you feel unheard, and you feel like nobody cares about your feelings, most of the time because you never admit to anyone that you have feelings, by the way. Or if you do it in an angry rage. Rawr, why don't you, you can't do this to me, right? Not in a, oh, you hurt my feelings, so I'm very sad, and I would like you not to hurt my feelings anymore because it sucks. So, okay, now when you give somebody that emotion, they could feel that and go, oh baby, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. But instead, if you look at them and go, you suck and you will never do this to me again, they go, they get all defensive because you've just attacked them, and it's impossible for them to feel how you're feeling because you've only just covered them in rage, right? So this is the process that happens, right, when we have an armored heart. And it's also the reason why it gets so hard to take the armor down. What happens is that as you live with an armored heart, what happens as you live with an armored heart is that you will end up feeling unseen and unheard and uncared for and unimportant and ultimately unlovable. Because when you armor up your heart, you don't feel any emotions, including love. And that means you also don't feel other people's love for you. Okay? And what happens is our inner child, that little subconscious part of our mind, says, well, I'm not letting myself have any love. Well, I must have done something wrong. So I must not deserve any love. I must be unlovable. Okay? And we create that story internally because we've armored our hearts, right? Because we've locked everything down. Because we've gone through this whole process of stuffing our emotions and managing them with our minds, and not actually allowing ourselves to feel them, and therefore not allowing things to be received either that are good. Now, we may have other reasons why we don't receive love, and those often come out of the same sort of environment that ended up making you armor up your heart in the first place. So for instance, if you have a parent who used love as a manipulation, love comes with obligation. It's like, I will love you and you owe me this because I love you. You owe me this. Or they manipulate you. I love you. Why don't you love me back? You should love me. You should call me. You should tell me what's going on. And you should do what I tell you because I love you and I only have your best interests at heart, right? All of these ways in which love can be used as a manipulation. And then there's also this sort of give and take that's sort of a transaction where it's, I'll give you this much love and that means you must give me this much love back. It is a trade. When I get this from you, I will give you that, right? And so it's a mutual obligation in that scenario rather than a one-way obligation of I love you, you owe me, I brought you onto this earth, you owe me, right? That sort of thing. And so when you have that sort of dynamic in your past, that will also add to the reasons why you may not receive love in your life. And it just makes it easier to leave the heart armored up, right? Because you're just like, oh, screw this. I don't need this. I don't need this manipulation. I don't need the obligation that love comes with. I don't need the potential for hurt. I don't need any of it. I'm just shutting down the shop and going home, right? That's what happens. And yeah, Mary, you're saying deep, deep feelings of hurt and sadness. Yeah, that collects in your heart. And it just adds up and adds up and adds up. And so on the occasion that we do get into relationship, where we are trying to open our hearts, we will end up trying to make the other person give us enough love to fill that hole that we've created in ourselves from that deep feelings of hurt and sadness, because we have not been acknowledging our own feelings. And I have to tell you, no matter how hard that person works at loving you, no matter how much they love you, no matter how much they do for you, no matter how much love they pour into your being in the form of energy and support and any other love language that might be yours, they will never fill that hole. There is no way for someone other than you to fill that hole. And until you recognize that, you're going to be stuck in this cycle of, I can't get what I want. I can't get what I want. Nobody cares about me. Nobody loves me. Nobody's going to take care of me. Because what you keep looking for outside of yourself is what's actually inside of yourself. Okay? And it is you who has to learn how to listen to your emotions. It is you who has to learn how to open your heart back up again, right? That's the differential. That's the piece of the puzzle that is the factor that we're looking at. And the symptoms are, excuse me, thirsty. The symptoms are a sense of feeling needy in relationship all the time. It's a sense of feeling like nothing anybody does for you is ever good enough. It's feeling unseen and unheard, like your feelings don't matter, like nobody notices your feelings. They don't even notice that you're sad. I used to have that all the time. Oh my God, I was so upset all the time because other people would get support. Other people would be noticed when they were having a sad day or, whatever. And people would be like, oh, baby, it's okay. It's okay. And I'm like, I'm having a bad day too. How come I don't get an oh, baby, it's okay? How come that doesn't happen? And what I was completely unaware of was the fact that when I was having a bad day, I was literally growling at people, going, and people were just like, ooh, they were giving me a wide berth because they didn't want to get whacked by my upset. Or if I wasn't growling, I was hiding. And I would go and hide in my bedroom and hope that someone would come and find me. Someone would care enough to come and find me. But I didn't give anybody any indication that I needed to be found, right? I didn't tell them that I needed finding. I didn't tell them I was sad. And I didn't tell them that I was hurt. And I didn't tell them that I wanted attention. I just ran off to my room. Oftentimes, after fully telling them, no, I'm fine. I'm just going to go do this now. And then I was surprised when they believed me. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Anyone had this experience? Oh, look, there's all kinds of comments I haven't seen because they've been scrolling and it didn't scroll with me. Numbness. Okay, Stas says numbness. Yeah, well, if you hold an emotion in your heart long enough without processing it, it will go numb. Your entire heart will go numb, okay? So easily dismiss the concept of having a relationship, give up in advance, don't dare to take a chance. Yeah, Mary, that absolutely happens, and you've had the experience of saying, oh no, I'm fine. Yeah, you're good at that too. You and I met at the same time when we were doing that. So we've sort of bonded over that moment. Mary and I met, what, God, like 25 years ago, when I was just when I was getting ready to get a divorce. I didn't tell anybody. Mary knew, my business partner knew, that was it. Nobody else, my husband knew. That was it. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to know that I wasn't perfect. I didn't want to be the topic of gossip. I didn't want anybody knowing, right? Because I didn't want people to know. And therefore I didn't get support, right? And yeah, it was in the mid-90s. And so, you know, but this is what we do. We don't do it. We don't support. We don't get the support because we don't ask. And you know, we don't ask because we feel like we can't. Or if we do, that we're gonna lose all the credit we have with people, right? So, oh, thanks, Mary. He says, as if they couldn't tell I was in the middle of divorce. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they probably could. They at least knew I was cranky as crap, man. They didn't know why, but they knew I was cranky. So yeah, there is that. But that's what we do when we have armored hearts, is that we pretend everything's okay, or we throw our anger at someone else, and we just don't get our needs met. So is anyone seeing themselves in this experience, in anything that I've said so far? Can you speak to when you don't feel like you have told people and still don't get acknowledgement? When you feel like you've told people and still don't get acknowledgement. Okay, so so this will take us down another road. Amelia says yes. So there is a piece of the puzzle that happens, and this, we're going to talk about a lot of different aspects of this, but I'll talk about this one here because you asked, Ken. There's a lot of different pieces and parts that go into this particular, you know, tapestry of coping mechanisms that come from having a challenged childhood or having been in an abusive relationship or whatever. And one of those is that we find our value by doing for others, right? By being of service to others. And one of the things that happens when you are in that space where you are being of service to others as a way to make yourself feel better about yourself is that you will end up surrounding yourself with takers. And takers, you have an agreement with these people that says, I'm going to give to you so I can feel good about me. And in your head, you're having a regular friendship where you're handing them things, and the expectation is that at some point you're going to need something and you'll ask and they'll give it back to you. But that's not the agreement that you actually have in place with these people. You're saying, I'm going to give to you so I can feel better about myself. That's a give and receive. That's a complete contract. There is no obligation due on their part. And so when you have surrounded yourself with takers so that you can feel good about yourself, and you ask them for something because you need something, and you're like, well, shit, I've done these 50 things for you. I'd like you to do this one thing for me. They look at you like you've lost your mind. And they're like, what do you mean? I can't possibly be right. Why are you asking me this? That's not our agreement. That's not the way this relationship works. You give to me, I let you feel good about yourself. That's how this relationship works. You're violating the terms. And they get all upset, and you're looking at them going, well, shit, man, I just gave you 50 things over the last 3 years, and I never asked you for a damn thing in return, and this is the one thing I'm asking for. What's your problem? And you guys are in different relationships, and you didn't know it, right? So this is what happens if you are not getting acknowledged in your emotions, is that you've probably surrounded yourself with takers. Does that sound like it might be true, Ken? Mary, I see your comment. Oh, there's the comment. I wish this thing would scroll by itself. It just doesn't. So yeah, and thank you, Mary. And I was going to have a boyfriend someday, and I'm busy taking care of things. Well, busy taking care of things is an excuse to not have a boyfriend. Don't you think, honey? I kind of think it is. You're pretty awesome. You should have a boyfriend. So Ken's going to think about it. Okay. And just take a look at your relationships with the people that you're asking for these things from. Because, you know, sometimes we think these are our best friends. I had a girlfriend of mine who had this in spades in her life. I mean, she's just everywhere in her life. And she got to a point where she needed something. And she asked, and they gave her the look. You know, she was trying to move, and they were just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not helping you back. Have you lost your mind? And she's like, I did all these things for you. And I'm like, yeah, they're takers, honey. They've always been takers. I'm like, I'll come help you back because I'm a real friend. Let's do this. It's okay. But yeah, she started just like slicing through, and you know, a great way to determine whether somebody in your life is a taker or not is to simply say no when they ask for something and see how they respond. Because if they're a taker, they're going to be pissed. They're going to be so pissed. Or ask them for something, and they're going to be like, no, I don't do that, right? Perfect way to tell if somebody's a taker or not, okay? The Grands want you to have a guy-gal relationship, Mary. Well, you know, that would be good. Do you want one? That's the question. Do you want a relationship? We don't know. So yeah, I mean, Ken, you know, check, you know, test it. Because when we've had these people in our lives, we don't know if we have takers until we ask for help or we say no to their request. Okay? Yeah, I know you're scared, honey. But here's the thing. The fear of getting into a relationship is a fear of getting hurt and or a fear of being abandoned, right? And when you have the fear of being abandoned, then you end up alone. Well, you're already alone. So no possibility of loss there, right? Because you're already alone. So you just end up where you started, right? And fear of getting hurt, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, there is a good chance that you will get hurt. Yep. The question is, will it be worth it? And if you have a good relationship, if you are really entrenched in that relationship in a good way, then getting hurt is not as big a deal because you got so much good juicy stuff out of it that, yeah, I got hurt at the end. But I had all this juicy good stuff for so long that who cares? It was totally worth it, right? The challenge is letting somebody in, right? That's the hard part. And, you know, part of that's because we associate it with that first time that we ever got hurt because we didn't know that there could be pain, right? And then there's also the factor that one of the things that happens, especially for those of us in this group, is that when we get into a relationship, there's a cultural norm that's established when we get into a relationship that says, I will give you my power and you will give me your power, and I will now be responsible for taking care of you, and you will now be responsible for taking care of me. And the problem is that when you do that, inevitably the other person will not be available to take care of you at some point when you need to be taken care of. And because you've handed them your power to take care of you, you no longer have it in your own grasp. And therefore, all you have left is the ability to feel needy and unfulfilled. And so what you end up doing is you try and force and manipulate the other person to do what you want them to do because it's the only way you can get your needs met because they have your power in that regard, right? But it's not the only way because it's an imaginary thing that you've handed them your power. You just believe it. So just stop believing it and take your power back You don't have to fight them for it because they don't actually have it, but you just take your power back and say, okay, you can't meet my needs today. It's my responsibility to meet my needs. Let me go get my needs met elsewhere, right? But when we don't realize that we've done that, when we don't realize that that's the dynamic that we're operating under, then we end up in this power struggle and this manipulation and this neediness and this, and we feel like the world is going to end and, oh my God, what am I going to do if they leave me? And because on top of it, we've gotten energetically codependent with them and we've merged with them energetically. It's just, oh, it's so challenging, right? And that's where we get stuck in this fear of letting people in again. So I hope that explains to you what the armored heart is, right? And how the armored heart works. If you want to talk more about how to address that yourself with me directly, I'm going to put a comment in the box here, and you can sign up for a breakthrough call with me using that link, which should work. Yes, there it goes. Haha. You can sign up for a breakthrough call with me, and I will be happy to have a conversation with you about how that applies to you and how it worked and how you got there and what to do about it. Okay? So unless there are any last-minute questions, I think I'm going to call it done for the day. Anybody have any last-minute questions before I wrap up? Nope. Okay. All right, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. Hope you learned a lot. And I'll do this again on Wednesday and Friday this week. And invite your friends out to the group so that they can come and see these calls too. And we'll talk again on Wednesday at 3 p.m. And thanks so much. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Have a good one. Bye-bye.